Yo! No sound. Again, I'm stupid. Hey. What do you know? What do you know? Again, great bumper music, Katie. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. Sorry about. Sorry, I'm truly sorry about that sound. That happened to me. We 2 weeks ago or so that I messed up with the sound. I am so sorry. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Friday Facts. And now it works saying Kataso on YouTube. Anyway, I'm sorry that those emojis weren't. I wouldn't be able. I can't get them to be visible anywhere else, any other platform than YouTube. At least these ones Linda James was sharing us. This as usual, this live stream will be going to my personal Facebook, the channel Facebook page. I suggest you go there, go check it out on Facebook. And then my main platform, which is YouTube, and then of course Twitch. Twitch is the other main place that I will be streaming to. It's my primary platform, as I said, and then Twitch is also where I stream. Anyhow, the topic for tonight is drag culture. What the hell is it? And what does it mean? The definition that I could find, the best and most accurate description that I could get my hands on is as follows. The term drag refers to the performance of masculinity, femininity, or other forms of gender expression. You may or may not have heard of terms drag queen and drag king. Drag queen is typically a male going portraying femininity, as well as drag king, typically female, not and performing or portraying masculinity. However, this isn't always the case. I have personally met a drag artist, or that I know of. Of course, I can't know, but hey, that I know to be a drag queen, who happens to be a transgender. There are plenty trans drag artists, and the term may or may not be used in terms as an adjective, as in a drag show. In that sense, it would mean as an adjective to describe the show as a show where these drag performances are being performed, or as I'm not a native English speaker, so I could be wrong, but correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. But then, as a noun, it could be in drag. A person a king being in drag. I could be mistaken. Please correct me. And as it so happens, the first mentions of this drag really is from the late 1800s. from typically from the US, uh, from which they a man born to slavery, born in slavery, William Dorsey Swan, referred to himself as the Queen of Drag. He was hosting these balls, or what do I call them? Parties, balls, formal social events in English, and the which were attended to by other slaves that were previously had been in slavery. And of course, these were documented in the newspapers at the time, because it would have been illegal at the time, because unfortunately homosexuality was a crime. In It would have been a crime in many countries, in Western countries, even up until the late 20th century. Um, yeah, so what that is the first mention that is known of. I could be wrong. Please do correct me. And this Swan guy was uh, eventually sentenced to prison for what was the charge? Keeping a disorderly house. In practice, that would have been at the time that would have meant running a brothel uh, at the time, which was yes. Linda James, yes, Swan, he was amazing. I'm so glad you are speaking about the founder of this. Yes, I. That's what I intend to uh, do here tonight, Linda James. That I try to get to the bottom of this. Well, the best I can, at least. Um, so in as I get it, as I understand, he nine in 1896 he was sent to 10 months in jail, I think, and the he was demanding a pardon. But hey, what do you expect to get? Do you expect to get a pardon at that even regardless of whether or not it was whether or not the charges were legit in 1890s, late 1890s? Do you really expect to get a pardon from the president for running a brothel? Uh, yeah, but um, he demanded a pardon for running a drag ball. Hey, this guy was sassy. I mean, he's sent to prison for a false charge of keeping a disorderly house, and then try to get a pardon from the president for holding a drag ball. This guy was sassy. What have you. And there were also these at that time there were these minstrel shows as well, which were, in my opinion, what according to what I read about these, th- those were incredibly racist. Um, as it was the when it comes to, at least in the US, when it comes to the developments of these of the drag show, the culture and such, what have you, came from these blackface minstrel shows, um, and at the start I played the little banner down there that this live stream will include mentions of sexism, racism, and LGBTQ plus phobia. If you are sensitive to these topics, uh, I suggest you stop watching right now and go watch some of my other fabulous content. Now onwards. This what were these blackface minstrels? Uh, they were originally, typically in the beginning in the 1800s. I understand that they started sometime around 1830s, as I gather, and the these were originally the original idea for these minstrel shows was just to mock African American men, but um, they eventually they also found it amusing to mock the African American femininity, and they went on to these skits, dances, and songs in these blackface makeups. Basically, a white guy in women's clothing, uh, and his face painted black or brown, um, which is kind of yikes. It's just incredibly racist, and this would nowadays even more be considered. Well, at the time it wasn't considered racist. It was the time, but nowadays it would be considered horribly racist. And then there was vaudevilles and the female impersonators. What these uh, minstrel shows went on to become, rather, the stylings, or really went on to become quite broad in sense of what they performed there, regardless of how racist it was. Uh, Incredibly racist. But these, in addition to these wench players, the minstrel shows had these prima donnas, which which appeared elegant and refined, but had their comedy in it. And as I understand it, these characters would eventually evolve into the modern drag queen we have now these days. Uh, please correct me in the chats, and if you're watching the replay, please correct me in the chat. Sorry, the comment section below. Um, and this, if but this sort of mm, guys or men dressing up as women. What at this point, by the time of William Dorsey Swan, the men dressing up as women was nothing out of the ordinary, because um, it had been going on since the Shakespearean plays. It wasn't as such. It was from uh, Elizabethan theatre in the 1600s. Um, the, for example, the Silent Woman, for example, there we go, and the film was it Shakespeare in Love from '98. Turns to this Shakespeare. The term I found, uh, Elizabethan convention, and there it was typically like this due to the fact that it was uh, sort of playing at the Shakespearean times. It was frowned upon for women to play in theatre. Hence, they had they just couldn't write. Even Shakespeare couldn't write plays and such and sonnets just with um, male characters in the shows. Um, yeah, and from there's the all kinds of in in England, for example, Eastern England, they have all kinds of culture as well. There is the plow Monday. I would understand it, and there are more than just. For example, in there is a what's called in Britain. There's a British pantomime. There is pantomime dame, which I take would be something close to a drag queen in the in mainstream drag culture. There's that is a traditional. It's played by a man in drag. While a principal boy, which is sort of a role of young male protagonist of the play, and that's such as Prince Charming or Dick Whittington is typically, as I understand it, played by a girl in these shows. In dramatic fiction, well, in any of these theater cultures from yesteryears or yesterdecades or centuries, there's there's a double standard really that often how shall I put this, has affected the drag over the years. There are many, if not most, major societies and cultures these days around the globe are typically male dominated, where these active roles for active roles were, as I mentioned, in Shakespearean times and in Elizabethan theatre, were reserved for men, and and then the women might as well just dress up as a guy under pressure for the dramatic predicament. Yes, that is that the correct pronunciation? Please let me know. If so, I will correct myself. Um, these have then and then these has then for example, a back then a man dressed as a woman was thought to be a falling action only suited for broad low comedy and burlesque. However, this it's debate on it's well, I don't think it's under debate, but burlesque is fun. That is not low culture. That's I would consider that drag and burlesque higher up on my scale than any opera or classical music really. But these uh, drag traditions, slapstick drag traditions, really um, in 1890s were organized, as I take it, every year or so since the early 1890s, and and then there was another at Princeton's Triangle Club, as I take it, and the drag shows were popular in 1920s New York, and but then went on underground because well, as I take it, the state started enforcing these all kinds of idiotic legislations or pieces of legislation that were trying to ban being queer back in the day. And however, these mind you, these were illegal in the states and across the globe due to these very outdated ideologies or mindsets. Much of these having to do with religion, which isn't really a surprise there. And they're what they start has started or was started as I take it in 1890s in the US have were then made into ballroom culture as a part of the LGBT plus culture, which the drag is now nowadays in 2020 or in 2000s has become a predicament of the queer culture or community, and there have been it became into the light or into the public light or the mainstream in 90s, and however there had been these balls and drag shows since times immemorial, and Madonna has, and I think Cher have taken up these drag kind of influences. At least I know that Madonna has taken some drag influences to her her performances and shows. This, of course, had or these since this left the modern drag culture started with Mr. William Swan, an African American former slave. Uh, so, do we still remember of course, we remember what happens in June 28th, in the wee hours of June 28th, 69, in Greenwich Village, New York. Yes, we had the Stonewall Inn riots starting there. Hey, sex workers, I'm not saying, of course, I'm not implying that that drag artists back then were sex workers. But hey, regardless, they were black or queer people of color. Regardless, those who started or sparked the riots in Stonewall Inn back in '69. So there we go. And then, so queer people of color have been in big roles, in huge roles in what we now know as drag. Of course, there were because that those were and mind you that even in mid 19th century, it was still a crime for a man to dress up in drag. But it was had become associated with the LGBTQ plus community. They hence both of these were at the time considered be immoral, but they were, however, popular. These nights, people performing drag, but they still kept going. For example, with Jose Sarria and Alicia Brevard, they became to prominence in these clubs, or these drag clubs that were, or nightclubs which were just bending the boundaries of what was really considered to be acceptable. But since after, especially in the half a century since the Stonewall riots, the LGBT culture has become more and more prominent and accepted part of American culture. So has drag, and it's okay these days. It was a crime still in 1890s when Mr. Swan was arrested for it. And these hasn't been just these drag has been associated for decades now in with the LGBT plus, and I understand why, because many it's just nowadays it's part of the subculture of LGBT plus, and these have been drag artists have been associated with, along with other LGBT people. For example, in May of 1959 in Los Angeles, Cooper Donut riot in May 1959 in LA, where drag queens, lesbians, trans women, and gay men rioted, and this was one of the first, shall I say, uprisings in the U.S. These people looking for justice, you know, looking for rights for themselves, and we had they had with which involved drag queens and other like-minded people. The Compton's cafeteria riot in San Francisco in 1966, marking the beginning of transgender activism in San Francisco, which typically especially in the 1960s, these types of riots typically sparked some sort of a human rights movement. In 16 March 68 in LA, there were protest entrapments and harassment by LAPD. There were two drag queens known as the Princess and the Duchess. They held a St. Paddy's Day party in Griffith Park, which was back then apparently a popular cruising spot, and some hundred people attended then. And then they had the famous Stonewall. People had the famous Stonewall riots, and nowadays it's much more widely spread and accepted in North America. In Canada as well, I have no idea as to that's at least how it goes in the English-speaking countries in North America. In Europe, these I mentioned these pantomime dames, which became popular form of impersonation of females in Europe in late 1800s to mid 1900s, which is the same time frame as all these kinds of activities sparking or getting a spark in North America as well. And then that was the first from late 1800s to mid 1900s. It was the first wave in the female impersonation and in the use of European comedy, which was a contrast to Shakespearean tragedies, which I mentioned in Shakespearean theatre or Elizabethan era theatre. It was a tradition or a common habit to have men portray female roles or dress up and make up as a female, and the same goes for Italian operas. And this kind of pantomime dame, and with from a charwoman to grand woman, that it was improvisation typically, which, as I understand it from what I gather, becoming a stock character in Western Western um, impersonation culture or theater culture. Um, for example, Dan Leno, and post World War One and Two, the theater and movie scenes were changing, and pantomime dance became declined, which I'm not surprised of, because the post World War One, and especially World War Two, in the northern hemisphere, in the Western countries, and I mean by that I mean the Europe, and Western Europe, and North America, as well as Australia and New Zealand. These Western In these countries, the um, cultural or attitude, sort of what was prior to the war, the um, shall I say, conservative attitudes became even more pronounced. Um, the arts, when it comes to the modern drag, it what dressing up takes, as I understand it, really, it might take, as I take it, it takes hours. It might take, hair and makeup and such might take an immensely long time. And yeah, I see it, why it takes hours. But nowadays, uh, yeah, but now it's uh, mainstream culture. It has arisen from the obscurity of history. It was in theatre in Shakespearean times. Uh, then it disappeared for what, two and a half centuries over, until we had Mr. Swan, who came up with the idea to start again, the in a different way. Uh, but hey, it's mainstream now. There are people, of course, in every country. There are these dicks who think it's inappropriate to do stuff like this. But hey, what what kind of culture would we have now if we didn't have drag? Thomas Neuwirth, also, I butchered that name probably. You know who that guy is. He performed Rise Like a Phoenix in the Eurovision Song Contest 2014. That's of course Conchita Wurst. What would we have in Europe without her, or Thomas? It's We have all kinds of these small clubs. We have we have uh, films, we have music, we have art, we have clubs, we have all kinds of wonderful stuff. Uh, we got well, we got Absolutely Fabulous, the movie, starring Joanna Lumley and Jeffrey Saunders. Uh, we have Kids, which is a documentary of young drag performers. We have Stage Mother. We have Dressed as a Girl with Johnny Woo from 2015. We have all kinds of, and we have Die Mommy Die with Charles Bush, Jason Priestley, Phil Baker Hill, and Natasha Leon. Uh, we have Flawless with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Robert De Niro from '99. Uh, the is kind of what I think is well, films that are, in my opinion, questionable humor. But hey, regardless, is The Big Mama's House with Martin Lawrence. It's kind of funny, but hey, some might find it uh, not so humorous, not as humorous as I do. Uh, we have then we have for in songs that refer to drag queens. We have Lola by the Kinks, or possibly a trans woman, and Dude Looks Like a Lady by Aerosmith, Lady's a Vamp by Spice Girls, King for a Day but from Green Day. We have He's a Woman, She's a Man by Scorpions. We have Rise Like a Phoenix by Conchita Wurst, which I mentioned. Uh, we have Drag Queen by The Strokes. TV. We have Don McLean. Drag name Laura Shannon. 3 episodes in All in the Family series from on CBS. We have from in Beverly Rides Again, 1976. We have Dancing Queen, released in 2018 with Justin Johnson, who uses the drag name Alyssa Edwards, and his dance studio, Beyond Belief Dance Company. We have Working Mom title episode of The Simpsons in 2018. We have some love it, some hate it. RuPaul's Drag Race is mainstream TV, even though I hear RuPaul is an absolute dick. But hey, that's rumors, and I don't wanna go too much into rumors on my channel. This channel isn't for rumors. We have AJ and the Queen from on Netflix from last year, 2020. We have Dragnificent in a TV series from the US, and yeah, we have, for example, and we have Nina West from Drag Race season 11, producer of Drag is Magic, and Drag is Magic is an EP of kids music about the art form of drag, as I understand, as I tell it, and quote unquote dream big, be kind, and be their perfect selves to inspire these kids to become, or perhaps encourage some kids to be perhaps drag artists in 15, 20, 30 years. Who knows? I mean, it's fun. And it's what a professor from Wagner College in New York City, John Casey has said drag queens are incredibly talented and they are trying to live their lives and in the process brighten the lives of those around them. That's the message parents should be communicating to their kids at any age. It's all about acceptance and being loved for who you are. Exactly. It's exactly like this, as John Casey said. Um, I do not have kids as of right now. Hopefully, I hope to have one day. I hope to have kids one day, and if I just possibly can, I want. This is what I actually would have told them otherwise. But yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, to that they can brighten up others' lives. You know, being themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be drag, but with drag, it's gonna be even more fun. And I wanna teach my kids about acceptance and being loved for who you are, just like Mr. Casey wants to go forth with or put forth to kids and all drags. And there has been, as I it's drag is as I said previously, it's part of modern gay life, or shall I say LGBTQ plus culture these days. It's what Mr. Swan, or what the ways, Elizabethan theatre ways that were put forth, um, has become now 400 years, just four bit over 400 years later, 400 approximately 400 years later, uh, and with the assistance of Mr. Swan and others, um, it has become mainstream LGBT plus culture, which is wonderful. Um, at this point, please ask questions from me regarding this subject, and I will answer you the best I can. And comment, ask me about the subject, about my channel, about whatever you would want to ask me today on this live show. Of course, I will be. Of course, I'll be reading the comments in the description below the video or the live stream once it's over. If there are no more questions, I think I will be going now. So please like and subscribe to my channel. We have we have a question from Linda James. So, is a drag queen always by a gay man? No, by all means, no. It's not always. It's what I'll have to check that. I had the it's yes. It's not, as I understand it. may or may not be female impersonator. I could be mistaken. So no, female. As I understand it, it could be female impersonator, but no, it's not always men. No, 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 no. Not by any means. As I said in the beginning, that I have met, at least that I know of, a one. I've encountered a female drag queen. So it's not always, and I know that there are more, but I just can't remember what the term is right now. Has there ever been a straight man being a drag queen? Yes, I would assume so. Yes. It doesn't mean it doesn't equal. You can't. There is no drag queen equals gay man. No. It's not mutually exclusive when it comes to actually being a drag queen and a gay man. That it's not mutually exclusive. It could be straight, bisexual, could be trans, non-binary. Could the yes, it's not always and I've never met a drag queen who was a straight man, but I am 100% certain that there are drag queens who are straight men. I know that there are drag queens who are trans women, so it could be the birth gender or the sex assigned at birth, and the sexual orientation could be anything. Really doesn't. There are no requirements as such of what you have to be in order to become a drag queen. And I think I'm not sure, but I think there might be drag queen kings who are actually cis male. I could be mistaken, but yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. I hope that answered your questions adequately. Anyway, if you lovely lot don't have any more questions, I must love you and leave you, and I also must please ask you to like and subscribe. Thumbs up, thumbs down, I don't care. The algorithm likes both. And both thumbs up and thumbs down help me with the algorithm. The last time I checked earlier today, only 30% of my viewers, only 30% of my viewers are subscribed, and that should be at least vice versa. I would love to have at least 60% of my viewers to be subscribed, and that would help me a lot to have my channel grow. Channel grow a lot. Just yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe. and I've gotta go. Thank you for watching, and bye.